So even though it's kind of marketed as a tennis movie, Challengers is more of a commentary about sacrifice and fanaticism within extremely competitive communities. It's kind of about the personal relationships that form when you have that type of dynamic and level of commitment to something. You know, you invest all your time and the energy into a single thing that's your entire identity. One of the big marketing things of this movie, obviously, is this movie stars Zendaya, but I think all three of the main actors in this movie do a really good job. And what this movie is to its core is it's kind of a tennis love triangle in which you have these two semi-professional tennis players going after Zendaya's character. They're named Art Donaldson and Peter Zweig. And if you're unfamiliar with tennis like I am, I'll give you a little bit of a simple analogy. It's like her character is kind of like the up-and-coming star. Think of like Serena Williams level good. And as this movie tells you in the trailer, her character suffers an extreme injury. She's not able to play tennis anymore. She ends up falling in love with one of the two guys, and the dynamic is that she's kind of his lover, coach, agent. And from the very first scene in this movie, you're going to notice that the visuals and the audio in this movie are incredibly crisp. Many of the scenes involving tennis have a very distinct pop of like the tennis ball off the racket. You have these scenes where you have the camera kind of like right behind the tennis ball, so the tennis ball looks like it's coming at you in 3D. I definitely thought whoever directed this movie did the cinematography, took a lot of care, took a lot of passion into the fact that they wanted to display tennis in its truest form. And I definitely really like the music choices in this movie too. Some of the synth they used during the tennis matches, I thought it was kind of like really hyped the way they were building up the competition. And at its core, what this movie is it's just a commentary about how far we'll go for greatness, the injuries we suffer, the toxic relationships we'll put ourselves through to improve to be the best. And for the first hour or so of this movie, I was completely invested in the tennis world, what they were doing. You know, I was engaged in the love triangle. I wanted to see how it ended, you know. The fact that Zendaya is on the screen also really helped. A moment of silence for Tom Holland. I was not familiar with your game, man. That being said, there's a lot of love scenes in this movie, and there's a couple of scenes that are going to make conversation over the dinner table quite awkward for Tom and Zendaya. This movie's also incredibly dialogue heavy. It's kind of like a story more so than the tennis drama, as I said, but it's incredibly well acted, so I think that's definitely good. That's definitely impressive because since it's a sports hybrid movie, you really need to have believable characters that make me think these guys know more about tennis than me. They're better than me at tennis. And I bought into it. I thought these guys were good tennis players. I'm not sure if they actually are in real life. It was CGI, what, but I thought the scenes they were on, they were pretty convincing that they were real tennis players. And the two main characters in this movie, Art Donaldson and Peter Zweig, they're kind of rivals and best friends at the same time, but I bought into the bromance. I thought they were real friends. I thought that their acting was convincing. I thought they do a good job. And that's where this movie's at its most fun, in my opinion. When you have the little love triangle, you have the two buddies broing out over Zendaya. I think it's really fun. I think their conversations as friends, kind of like really accurate dialogue to how some friendships work. I thought it was just the most fun you have in this movie. But as much as I like the dynamic between all three of them, there's definitely some things I didn't like about this movie that kept rubbing me the wrong way the longer I went on viewing it. This is one of those movies that the longer it kept going, the more I kind of kept hoping it was going to end, because the longer it went on, the more it kind of fizzled out, and like kind of a shame because the first hour, hour and a half of this movie is really tense in my opinion. I thought it was a really good buildup. But the problem this movie ran into for me is that the longer it went on, the more I kind of started to dislike all three of the characters in their own way, which I know that's part of the dynamic they're building, but that also kind of made the movie start to feel pointless after a bit because I didn't have anybody to root for, and I just thought everything that was going on was getting equally annoying. And this is one of those movies, obviously, where they're kind of going to imply some things about each character, you know, who's good, who's bad in each scenario, kind of get you to pick sides a little bit, who you root for, who you're against. And all of this starts off as subtlety, but eventually, and the longer it goes on, the more I just thought it was kind of direct, like they were hitting me over the head with a mallet, trying to get me to believe a certain thing and kind of get me to understand the point. It's almost like the director felt scared that the audiences weren't going to pick up on the subtlety and he needed to wrap it up before it ended. There was definitely a couple of choices and things they choose to go for as Zendaya's character towards the end I just definitely wasn't a fan of. I mean, it's probably a personal preference, the way they chose to write the movie, but it didn't work for me. I definitely didn't like the angle they took. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. Obviously, it's kind of central to the plot, let you see it for yourself, but just something I wasn't a fan of. And this movie has a runtime of almost 2 hours, and to me, and it's probably just a personal gripe, I say this in a lot of videos, it was just a little bit too long. I feel like if they would have shaved 15-20 minutes off it, would have been a more tightly tense package, you know, a thriller. Because as visually cool and immersive as the tennis scenes are, they really are in love with slow motion in this movie. I mean, they use it to death in the end of this movie. If you cut out just the slow motion scenes, you probably could save 5 to 10 minutes alone. That's where I'd start. When you do get to the final scene of this movie, I was actually a big fan of it. The final shot right before the credits, they obviously throw subtlety right out the window. It's kind of what I was picking up on anyways. But it's a shame I kind of like hated the last 30-minute trajectory it was on before we got to that point. But yeah, to me, this was a movie with really good audio and visuals. I think the tennis aspects are super cool. I thought the little love triangle drama was pretty damn intense, at least at the start. It fizzles out a little bit. Doesn't mean it's bad, just kind of too long for my taste. When I think of Challengers and compare it to all the other sports dramas out there, I definitely think you could do worse, and you probably have. By no means the best movie I've ever seen. Definitely not the worst, as much as I have my gripes with it. I mean, it just falls off a little bit, even though it starts off intense. You could do worse. It's still entertaining. So have you seen this, or do you plan on it because of the infamous Zendaya scene? Comment down below. Let me know. If you haven't already, subscribe. What the hell are you waiting for? There's going to be more new releases, more scary movie stuff. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite sports drama hybrid movie is, but that's all I got in this video. Peace.